Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, and we are back after doing 26, not 24, 26 videos in 24 hours. I got some good rest. I crashed hard afterwards. And one of the person I was trying to get in touch with to get them on that, because as everybody knows, it was really interview heavy. I think out of the 26 videos, 22 or 24 of them were in fact interviews. But I wanted to introduce my audience that may not know about Dauntless Dialogue and Adam Riva. And he does really good work on a lot of different subjects. But what drew me to him was not only he's from the area, but he did a really good one on the Catholic Church and systemic pedophilia. And I encourage everybody to go check that out and give him a watch. But he does a lot of different things as well. And he's not afraid to touch the occult nature of some of these cases, which I feel like a lot of people want to ignore, but I certainly can't ignore because they're so in your face, and obviously there's a pattern there, and you look into the darkness of this Catholic Church and some of these cases, and it's like, well, what do these people believe? So Adam, thank you very much for coming on. Why don't you tell my audience about yourself and then kind of get in how you got into YouTube and presenting this stuff.
Yeah, Jason, thank you so much for having me on, brother. It's really great to finally meet you. I mean, I was a fan way back when you were doing The Truth Warrior like 10 years ago. So it's cool to finally cross paths. As you said, I put out a lot of presentations. The vast majority of my work tends to focus on the occult. It tends to focus on what I call systemic pedophilia, which is, as you said, a pattern of behavior from these global elite, these creatures walking the halls of Washington, these creatures in Hollywood who are engaging in these rituals. So there's child trafficking, there's satanic ritual abuse, there's even things as dark as cannibalism. And so I do my best to convey this information in a grounded way, in an erudite way, in a way that's not going to sound the alarm. But yes, I want to spread awareness. I want to get as many people talking about this as possible.
100%. And, I remember when I was first starting, well, if you listen to my old Info Warrior show with Alex Jones, then all the way back then I was talking about the Franklin scandal. I was talking about things like the Finders. I had actually, talked to, met, and interviewed Ted Gunderson. Who I don't take as gospel, but, I'd gone out there and done the work and said, there is something to this. This is very dark. And when you find out it's these people in the upper echelons of power that are into this weird stuff, because we're always taught to believe, right? It's like the kid that didn't get attention in school and he was into goth makeup and, it's all an isolated incident. But no, there are groups that are into this type of thing, and that Finders dump. I had Derek Bros on of the Conscious Resistance, and he had done a great documentary series before the dump. But the dump itself, reading the handwritten words of the local police that actually interviewed and saw these children and arrested these guys, there's no doubt there was something bizarre going on there. And we already know our government can't be trusted. I mean, the Epstein case is just a great awakening to that. But at the same time, that was, such a web of information and a network of very evil people that look like are going to walk now.
Jason, it's so funny to me that in times of almost universal political division where we can't agree on anything, everyone can agree that Epstein didn't kill himself. And it's backfiring, they've pushed so far that now they're getting the blowback. And I think, disclosure is starting to get out. And when I say disclosure, I just mean people are talking, people are doing their own research. They're rejecting the mainstream media. They're finally starting to do their own homework. And what a glorious day that is. You brought up the Finders. I was talking about the Finders long before, the mainstream media was, long before the FBI D class. And so, yeah, part of this is to put the information out ahead of the mainstream sources, because they're going to attempt to misinterpret it or to misconstrue it or to downplay it or to whitewash it. And so if we can get the information out as great maverick researchers like, Ted Gunderson, you mentioned, going way back, this is not new information, but yeah, people are starting to encounter it for the first time. So it's up to people like us to have these conversations, to convey the information, to do our best to build a circumstantial case with the evidence to basically point out their methods, motives, and who the perpetrators are.
Exactly. And, when we talk about this and stemming decade upon decade and decade upon decade, I want to take it even further back to not just the 80s and the 90s with the finders, but let's take it all the way back to Lord Mountbatten, a father figure to Charles, somebody in the 50s that the FBI knew was a serial pedophile, okay? And, not only didn't they do anything, he became one of the lead commanders at NATO. It's so weird how that works. It's so weird how now you can mirror that with not only Prince Andrew being a part of the Canadian military, but what's he really doing? Well, I'll tell you what he's doing. He's doing arms deals for the royal family and their cronies. That's what he's doing. That's what he's there for. And for people not to realize that in what's going to be 2020, very, very shortly, we still live in a society ruled by bloodline. If that is not so in your face and you don't get it, just look at the royal family. They do whatever the fuck they want. They have dinner with the Saudi Arabians and President Trump. And guess what? Andrew's playing golf with Trump. And Trump can just say, I don't know the guy. You just spent a week with him where he was your main go-to guy in June, and you don't know him. You don't know him in Mar-a-Lago either. And that's the other thing I like about your work. It obviously is not about partisan politics and the left and the right, because you got to realize that both of them lie, and that's just another in-your-face, blatant lie that the people wearing MAGA hats and their Trump training or their Q loving, they're like, don't worry, it's 86D chess, there's 100,000 indictments, and he's going to pull the trigger. He's going to get them all. And I just don't believe that, man. Like I said, the test was whether they could keep Epstein alive and prosecute everybody else if the deep state was ever going to come down. That's how I felt about it.
It's not a partisan issue. So, I've done my best in my research to make a bulletproof argument that this is happening in virtually every sector of society. Now, that might seem jarring to somebody when they first hear it, and that's okay. I've done my best to lay out the evidence as best as possible. But we're talking about, complicity within law enforcement. We're talking about international aid organizations. We're talking about international adoption agencies. We're talking about Hollywood, Washington, public schools, organized religion, and not just the Catholic Church like everyone thinks about, but, Buddhism and even in, Scientology and Mormonism. There's
in all of them. Look at the Middle East right now. Look at the people, the clerics that are selling these pleasure marriages that can last from 1 hour to 99 years or whatever they want. It's a joke. And like anytime you have power and religious beliefs or idealistic beliefs like a NXIVM or whatever, you're in a total, you're in a situation, man. And I don't know about you, but I've seen nothing but abuse in a lot of these cases. And it's, like you said, Catholic Church, Muslim culture. Obviously, I'm not going to give a pass to Judaism either, because you see the same thing over and over and over again in high levels of organized religion where they all cover it up. And the Catholic Church is probably just the most egregious that we realize, because it's our culture. It's our brothers, sisters, cousins, friends, and family that were abused by these people. But I remember, back in the 90s, I'm a 40-year-old man watching Sleepers, and that was like a pretty big Hollywood picture. Brad Pitt, Jason Patrick, and all these guys who were being, again, systemically raped in these institutions, in these Boys Town-like institutions, and nothing was being done. And then 15 years later, it's mainstream media that a lot of these places had mass graveyards for the kids that they were abusing.
Yeah, in fact, you don't even have to get into anything that's like obscure or occult. You can even look at some of the mainstream admitted and proud rituals of some of these organizations. So you mentioned Judaism. Well, they have a practice in their religion called oral suction circumcision, where a mohel will circumcise the young baby and then vampirically suck the blood from the penis of the baby. And in fact, this is such a bizarre and dangerous ritual that it's actually resulted in many court cases that have been disputed over transmission of oral herpes to the child.
Yep.
So as if we had to look to the Epsteins of the world, or go back to the Franklin cover-up, or Margaret Thatcher's cover-up of pedophilia in Great Britain, or any of these cases, any of these high-profile cases. It's right in front of our eyes.
It is. And talking about Thatcher, and you're obviously going to point to Jimmy Savile, who had to have all the clearance in the world from MI5 and MI6 and Her Majesty's Secret Service, right? He's in and out of that place all the time. There's videos of him joking about like getting girls on the property, and you see some of the video of him just grabbing. We're talking about somebody who's now been a confirmed necrophiliac on top of a child abuser, and there are stories out there that Charles was going to have him be the godfather to one of his sons. This is insanity. This is craziness. And when Lord Mountbatten finally met his end on his boat that was blown up by the IRA, apparently, who knows who blew it up, but he's there with his houseboy. I mean, he's there with the 15-year-old boat boy. I mean, my God. And people don't want to talk about this because it's uncomfortable to think that, the upper echelons of power, the people that are the predator class, but we're supposed to look up to. They're on the television. They're movie stars. They're kings and queens and congressmen. They're senators like Dennis Hassert that was molesting kids for decades as a high school gym teacher and coach. What happened to him? He went to prison, right? No, he rose to the cream of the crop. He never got charged on any of the abuses, and he went to jail because he got caught laundering money to one of his victims to keep his mouth shut, and then he tried to say that he was the fucking victim. That's the crazy-ass world. That guy didn't even spend 15 months in prison, okay? He got 15 months. I think he did 13, and he's an old man in a wheelchair. We got to get him out of there. No, fuck him.
Yeah, and that's a common tactic that you see, the playing the victim card, which is something that the Catholic Church is doing right now with... I can't remember the priest's name. It's Mick something. It's Irish. But what he's done is the Vatican has said, okay, the charges brought against him are credible, but the boy was 16, which under Vatican law, that is actually the age of majority. Even though in the United States and around the world, it's often 18 years old. They said, so therefore, he was, of the age of consent. And then, the real victim in that is the priest. And that's bullshit. Sorry. That's just insane to prey upon a child and then to throw up your arms and cry victim is pathetic. But so let me take an opportunity here. Let me take advantage of this to put out a message. One of the things that I try to do with my channel and with all of my research on this subject specifically is to convey, as I said, the methods, motives, and perpetrators, but also to really pull back the lens and look at the big picture. And in my critical assessment of this situation, I've come to a couple of takeaways. Conclusion number one is that, they're trying to sexualize children and to normalize pedophilia so that when the elite are increasingly caught and exposed, that they won't face prosecution. So we're seeing this more and more. One example that I can point to is the normalization of pedophilia through DSM-5 in psychiatry, which has now basically downgraded pedophilia. They've diluted it. They've said it's normal, and all men are pedophiles is basically what they say. And so, I'm pushing back against the normalization. And in my videos, I've actually laid out their handbook, their playbook, if you will, how they're normalizing it. Conclusion number two is that this very, very nicely weaves in with globalism. And so basically by breaking these young, impressionable minds, by having millions of victims of child trafficking and millions of victims of pedophilia around the world, and the number's probably much higher than that, they are inculcating them into basically mind control and as a means, as basically as a proxy to bring about the global village. And so that might seem like a little bit of a stretch. I want to go into great detail in my work. I lay out the case, I lay out the argument. So I'm just putting a teaser in there for now. but these things are all connected. And that's really the essence of it. If we're going to talk about this subject, we have to, take the tweezers out, pull out each thread one at a time, and look at the entire tapestry.
Well, let me just stop you here. And I'll say this, man. I'm not a big religious guy, right? I always consider myself pretty agnostic, but there are two things I believe in. Good and evil. They fucking exist as some kind of force in nature. And there's plenty that we don't see, and we know that. We have a very small spectrum of light. And when you look at this, and you were just talking about a method of globalism, and you talked about the downgrading and normalization and sexualization of children, which I find disturbing on every single level. Forget about just the drag kids. I was never into the toddlers and tiaras, and the idea that a Jean Benet is prancing around in lipstick at 6 years old and dancing around. That you see, that's the beginning of it. That's the beginning of it, where we're going to have these kids in little shows and start sexualizing little girls, and now it's going to be little boys as little girls, etc. But when you do look at a lot of the Hermetic symbolism, the ideas of Satanism and Luciferianism, it is that idea of the amalgamation of the sexes. Everything is one. You can do it. You can be whatever you want. You are both things, as above, so below, and you find it just about everywhere in esoteric knowledge from just about every school of knowledge. So I haven't watched that level of your stuff yet, but I've certainly done my own research, and those are probably going to be some of the next videos that I do. I'd love to have you on again when any kind of story breaks, so please reach out to me. So that's going to be fun. And then I got Ray McGovern coming up next. So what would you like to close on? What do you think, if you had to sell one video right now? I've already sold Systemic Pedophilia Part 4, Exposing the Vatican. I think that one's a good one. Go subscribe over here, guys. Dauntless Dialogue, and you can follow him on Twitter as the same. What do you want to leave my audience with?
Oh, God. Well, I cover a vast array of different subjects on my channel. I've done my best to collate information so that it's all in one place, so that it's easy to comprehend, so that the evidence is made clear, and so that this is, actionable, so that there are solutions, and so that you don't feel, totally in despair. You might want to take a cold shower and just purge this disturbing information out of your brain, and I understand that. But I do what I do because there are so many voiceless children out there who are unable to fend for themselves. And I was blessed with an awesome childhood, and I feel a bit of noblesse oblige to pay that forward, to fight on behalf of the defenseless. And I encourage our audience that even though you might feel deeply disturbed by this, as you should, it is imperative for us to begin these conversations with friends, with family, with coworkers, to get the information out. Otherwise, these things are never going to, they're never going to come to an end.
Couldn't agree more, brother. It's the human interactions that matter, and now with this little magical box, it's a tool, man. It can be used to enslave you. You can be sitting and scrolling through Instagram and getting upset you're not at the party, or magically, you have access to all the information in the world in high definition in any news article ever. So when you're talking about something, they're like, get the fuck out of here, man. No, right here. There it is. New York Times, CNN, ABC. Unfortunately, they still trust those organizations. And in a sense, we do need them to at least break some of these stories through the cracks. But my point being is human interaction, and that's what you need. You're right. And you got to use these as tools, man. Hammer can smash your fucking head in or can build a house. Listen, my brother, I appreciate it, and I guess I will see you on the flip side.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate you having me on, and you're more than welcome to come on my show, and we'll do a podcast together.
You bet we will. I promise to do that. You just let me know. Get at me with some dates, and we'll do it, all right?
Awesome. Thanks, Jason.
Later on, brother. Alrighty, folks. As I said, we got Ray McGovern coming up at the top of the hour at 5 p.m. I'm doing it 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times a day normally. Okay, I did 26 videos in 24 hours. A lot of people didn't get the notices for those, so I just want to let everybody know we really did 26 videos. 26 videos, starting with this one right here, all the way up in 24 hours. So please go check those out. Share them with people. Thumbs this up. Subscribe to the Burmese Brigade. We're trying to get to 40,000. Believe it or not, I don't think we gained a subscriber yesterday. I think it was even. Maybe people were mad that I did so many videos. I don't know. But I'm a documentary filmmaker. They're all free here. You can check them out. Loose Change, Final Cut, Fabled Enemies, Invisible Empire, A New World Order to Find, and Shade the Motion Picture. And if you want to financially support me, here it is. This is how I'm doing it. A GoFundMe. $5, $10, $15 means the world to me, and it keeps me putting this information out, doing great interviews and covering the news that nobody else seems to. So, guys, I absolutely love you, and I will see you on the flip side with Ray McGovern.